What's going on, guys? Eric Swanick here from Swan Hockey with another episode of Swan Hockey Live. There we go, got him. I am joined today by Cam Robichaud and Trevor Simonson of New Hampshire Mountain Kings in the North American Hockey League. Cam is the head coach. Trevor is the assistant coach. Guys, how we doing?
Doing good.
Doing well.
I'm on the laptop now, so you can hear me fine?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. Everybody good. Everyone can hear me.
Cool. Perfect.
So, yeah, we are episode 15. We're about 15 episodes into this. If you're new here, welcome. This is completely interactive. We want to hear from you. We want to know, where you're playing, where you're trying to play for next year, where you're coming from. You could throw a team out there. You could throw a level. It'll help us kind of guide the show towards who's here tonight. But yeah, so throw it in the comments. You can comment on YouTube, Facebook. You could put it in the Discord. If you are watching on Instagram comments will not show up. So if you're watching on Instagram and you want to comment and you want to interact, go over to the YouTube channel or go over to the Swan Hockey Discord, or you can do it on Facebook as well. But you can still watch on Instagram, but you will not be able to interact on Instagram. And from what I understand with the software, the feed will get cut off after an hour. From Instagram, we should only be going about an hour anyway, but if we go a little over, it will get cut off. So if you just, if you're on Instagram and you want to go over to one of the other platforms, go ahead. And let's start. Cam, why don't you start off with a little bit about New Hampshire Mountain Kings, kind of how the season went, first year, last year, all that kind of stuff, and what you guys built there.
Yeah, absolutely. So last year was our expansion season. So first year, and we got a pretty late start, probably 3.5 months before, the first puck drop on the season, we were announced. And so Trevor, myself, general manager, Clint Edinger, obviously had a lot of work to do in a short period of time. Not only did we have the NA team, but we had the NA3. We had a U18, U16, U15 academy, physical in-person learning, brick and mortar school in a dorm. So there was a lot of moving pieces on top of that. Our arena went through some renovation in preparation for our first season. So it was a quick 3.5 months. I think overall it was a positive first season. Our goal was to hit 20 wins, which we did. We had 16 one-goal game losses. So our sole mission was to be competitive in year one. And I thought for the most part we were competitive, and we started laying the foundation of the program, and we're really excited for year two. You take the good, you take areas that you can improve upon and bring it into year two, and you expect better results. In the win column, you see teams that have been expansion teams in the past in this league and how significantly they've increased in the win column in year two. I think the biggest success is we had 17 players to have college commitments in year one at the Division I and Division III levels. So for our first year to see our alumni list at 17, I think speaks volumes of our developmental nature. I think it also speaks volumes of the North American Hockey League and how good of a league it is and how much it's followed by the colleges, and a team coming in 1 year placing that many kids into school again just speaks volumes of the level of play, and it's a really good start for us.
Yeah, for sure. Trevor, anything that you want to
add? It took a lot by the group. There's obviously a lot more than us to get it all done, but a bit of a round of applause. Cam had a lot to do with a lot of the program outside of just the NA team. He had a massive hand in the rest of it, which was super encouraging. I don't think you get that out of a lot of North American League coaches. I don't know how involved a lot of them would get. So it definitely made things a lot easier. It was his second expansion program, so he'd kind of been through it before, and that'll be the last person to talk about it, but he had a massive hand in making sure that this all ran the right way and to help make sure that we had winning success for the team goals, management goals, and for his own personal goals was a big win for everyone.
Yeah. And I was going to, and Cam, I don't know if you want to get into it or not, but like, how was this time? Like, obviously, I mean, you had a very, very large hand in building the Nordiques years ago. Like, how was this go around like different, or was it the same, or was it easier, or was it harder?
There's definitely similarities as far as like the timeline of when we got announced in Maine, and how quickly we had to build out the NA team. It's a little different because we didn't have the academy in dorms and brick and mortar schooling at that time. And we had a larger staff with the Nordiques. So there is some similarities. I mean, I guess the biggest similarity is just the timeline and how challenging it really is. Anyone that has, had to build a roster 0 to 25 in this league understands. If you've come into the league and you already have a roster in place, I think it's a little bit different. So, kudos to our organization, but, Rochester had an excellent year. They're a real professional organization, in Colorado, getting off the ground. It's challenging, and we had the same challenges, 5 years ago in Maine as we did here in New Hampshire, as far as, what's left on the table when it comes to recruiting. When you get announced only 3 months before the season, a lot of teams have received their tenders in November of that year and have been tendering players and starting the conversations in the recruitment process. And so when you finally get announced, you want to, hit the ground running, and you're so excited, and you're talking to everyone, and you quickly find out that everyone you're speaking to has already spoken to several other, teams, and they're kind of a little further down, the process in the recruiting sense. So that's what makes, the biggest challenge. And then I think also this similar challenge I saw in Maine and in New Hampshire is how much you miss not having returners or guys that have been part of your environment that new incoming players can lean on. Everyone's new, from the staff to the players. And there isn't that, that kind of veteran presence, that big brother presence. Even if a guy, played in the league in another organization, we traded for him, he's still adjusting to, Hooksett, New Hampshire, and his billet, and, our systems and the way we, coach and communicate. And so you may have some experience in the league, but there's still a lot of first. And when everyone is going through that, first of everything, you definitely get to a point in the season where you see how valuable returning players are. And, that's the big push for us in year 2 is, having the players that, bought into what we're trying to build, gave the effort, on the ice, off the ice, carried themselves, in a professional manner that we're looking for in New Hampshire. Having those players back and allowing the incoming class this year to kind of lean on them, when they're not certain about a situation or how to handle, a bad game or, how we go about our business. I'm really excited to see that in year 2, that kind of mentorship and leadership from our returners onto our, incoming class of players.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point that I think a lot of people overlook, because it's, like just having that group of people that kind of, like obviously lead the way, but it'd almost be like a bunch of people going to a new town, like forget hockey, like a bunch of people going to a new town to live, and nobody knows where the local food store is because everybody's new. Nobody knows anything about anything because everybody's new, right? Like when you go somewhere and you have all the, that's what
you see it at the highest levels, right? Like look at, like Sidney Crosby, one of the best players in the world, and, when he entered the league, the first thing he did was move in with Mario Lemieux, a guy that had been in the league and, obviously knew the ins and outs of, how to be a top level player, in the National Hockey League. Connor Bedard, and you see this year, all over the TV, they're talking about how the veteran guys are, they're helping him, and he's, he feels that he's been mentored in how to be a pro. Same idea. It's not pro hockey, but it's how do you be a North American League hockey player? How do you be a junior hockey player? How do you live away from home for the first time? For some of these younger guys. So you see it at all levels, whether it's pro or junior, or even midget, for the first time going away to academies. It's, really beneficial to have someone that's kind of been through it one time around, to lean on. And so I think that's going to make a huge difference for us this upcoming season.
Yeah, no, for sure. It makes total sense. Like, do you guys find, like, in terms of, like, so obviously, a hot topic is like a lot of the change that's been going on in junior hockey, over the last couple of years. And then even, there's a ton of change this year and stuff, like with what the BCHL is doing, what the NCDC is doing. Like, do you find anything different, like, on the recruiting trail? Like, has any of that changed a little bit? Is there anything that's, players, you find more guys are, turning away from some of those other leagues, more guys wanting to go to some of those other leagues? How do you, like, just all the change and stuff, like, are you seeing anything different on your,
I didn't see too
recruiting
much change in the sense of, like, players going, to the BC or the NCDC. I still, saw players wanting to come into the North American League. A positive change is that because the BC wasn't part of Hockey Canada, it was very easy when a player wanted to get out of the BC, they could just come right over, to the NA. And it works both ways. But if you're going about your business the right way and providing a good, developmental platform for your players, and there's no reason for them to leave, then you don't have to worry about that. We picked up one of our better forwards probably at the halfway point from the BCHL, just looking for a change and wanted to get to the States, and saw, how much live viewing he would get from the schools. Playing in the North American League, obviously the BC is quite a distance from a lot of, the American schools. And so he wanted to come to the East Division because he likes a lot of the Hockey East schools. And New Hampshire, we're right in the heart of it. We're surrounded by, all the Hockey East schools. You take an hour and a half drive in any direction and you'll hit several. And so, that was different this year in the sense of that player wanted to come, and we had conversations and we went about it, the right way, speaking with, the general manager there. And, he was able just to come, to our team. No trade, no monies was needed, to be transferred.
You guys still spoke with the GM of the BC team?
Yeah, we actually did. The GM really liked the kid, and thought that he wanted him, I guess I should say, he wanted him to get the opportunity to be seen by more schools, which I thought was a little odd, to be honest with you, because there's a lot of kids that are committed, in the BC. But yeah, he had reached out actually to Clint Edinger, our general manager, and then Clint kind of put it on my desk, and the rest is history. The kid ended up with us. So I applaud, the general manager there for, working for his player. He could have very much wanted to keep him in that league, or the NCDC or the CCB. So kudos, to him and moving the player, to where he wanted to be. For sure. That's awesome. Trevor, what do you think? Like, how do the BCHL players kind of translate? Like, what do you think of the?
I think as a whole, the league generates a lot of buzz around skill and talent and coordinated or creative versions of offense. I think they grab a lot of those style of players. And I think the thing that the league misses on is that when you're looking for a Division I commitment, you're looking to fill a job. You're looking to fill a role. right? Like your first two lines can score goals. Your third line probably isn't scoring goals, but they're bringing energy, and your fourth line is probably bringing a lot of energy. So I think it's tough sometimes for the BC guys, because if you're not a top six player in that roster, and it doesn't translate to a Division I or Division III top six style, I just think you're not necessarily improving your game on the things that you need to get that commitment. So, you know, in getting Ethan over from the BCHL, it was a lot of skill, but it wasn't a lot of identity. It wasn't a lot of, like, you know, he can shoot the puck, and he's a good skater. He possesses well. He's a very good passer. But what identity does that have? What do those skills add up into? So we spent a lot of the season going over film with him, as to say, you know, these are the handful of moves that you can do. You should be playing as a power forward. You should be using your size and strength to get to space and use your shot. That's where the value is. And it was surprising in working with him how often you would say, wow, no one's ever said it like that before, or I didn't realize that had any value. And it's surprising, because the player is a very high skilled player, all kinds of ability, not as much understanding as to what necessarily to do with it. And so that was intriguing. And then you go back and watch some of the BCHL games, and you see a lot of similarities, where it's a lot of high skill, and there's a handful of guys that really know what to do with it. And then there's a handful of guys that are just trying to catch up with the rest of the group by doing what they do. And it's like, you're not going to get a deal by doing the same thing everyone else does. You have to be unique and use your strengths. So it's what I've seen in that league as a whole. And then in working with Ethan, that was kind of our direction with him, was taking all of that skill and giving it a rhyme and a reason, and a handful of plays to give himself consistency, to use his fundamentals and strengths to find success. And that was overall our interaction with Ethan.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like, I mean, like, I always tell people, I think they're, obviously I think the BC and the NA are the two best tier 2 junior leagues there are. I think if I'm looking for the best skilled forward I could find, I'm looking in the BC. If I'm looking for the best 200-foot player I could find, I'm looking in the NA. If I'm looking for the best goalie I could find, I'm probably looking in the NA.
Yeah. Bits and pieces.
That's always been my, what is that?
I said, yeah, bits and pieces of that are fair. I think there's a lot of guys. I mean, one of the things about the BC, right, is those guys, a lot of them aren't leaving for major junior, whereas our guys can leave the North American League and go to the USHL. So I think if we weren't capped by having another league like the USHL above us, I think obviously you'd have no problem with the skill factor and running through our league.
For sure.
But yeah, that's the peak of their product is high level skill, high level offensive skill.
Yeah, like I think that's more like the identity of the league a little bit. Like I think,
it's more of a possession game, right? What we saw this year, and slow things down in space. I think the North American League is skill, but there's also hard skill, and it's a heavy league. And you do have identities of roles where you have your T6, and then you have your defensive players, and you have your hitters or your heavy guys. And like, Trevor said, I think that's more translatable to the college game. You don't have 4 first lines, in Division One.
Right.
And so, junior hockey is supposed to be your training, ground before you get to college. And if you're going to be a 4th line guy in college, you should be training as a 4th line guy, and so I think,
for sure,
playing, in a heavier league may be better for you. But I think it comes down to organizations and coaching philosophy and just your relationship with your coach too. I mean, I don't think any team in the North American League is a bad option, or the BC is a bad option. As you said, they're, top 2 leagues, at the tier 2 level. And so it comes to, I guess your comfort level, with the organization and having kind of the talk we're having right now, having as a player, you should be having this talk with the coaching staff. Like, what is my identity? How are you going to work with me and develop me within that role? Because that's what I'm going to be, in college. And what is the plan, my developmental plan throughout the season. So it's healthy to have that conversation, and I guess the staff that can give you, the most honest answer and you have the most comfort level, that's probably the spot that you should go.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And before we keep going, guys, there's a good amount of Instagram coming in. If you're on Instagram, we cannot see your comments. The software that we use, if you want to interact and you want to, if you want to interact with the show, you're going to have to go over to YouTube, Discord, or Facebook. Any of the three, you'll be able to interact with the show and we'll be able to see your comments and respond. If you're on Instagram, again, you could watch it, but we will not be able to see the comments on Instagram. So yeah, go over to YouTube if you want, or Facebook or Discord. If you're in a Discord, just go to the live podcast channel. So yeah, now just, building off of like what we were just saying and what you were just saying, Cam, I think it's important, like to your point, to have that conversation, because when you think about it, almost everybody at some point is going to have to change their role, right? Like their role is going to get changed somewhere along the lines. So you want to have that talk with the coach about that, because you figure there's 32 teams in the NHL, right? 30, something like, right? Is it 32 this year?
Yep.
In the NHL, right? 32. So 32 teams in the NHL. There's 6, if we take the forwards, there's 6 top 6 forwards, right? That's 192 players. So there's 192 players in the world that don't have to change their role. Everybody else in the world at some point has 2 options: either change your role or you play at a level low enough where you don't have to change your role. But if you want to keep progressing, right? So there's no shame in having to change your role. Almost everybody does it at some point. And I know we've talked about this before, on these episodes. So to Cam's point, I think that's extremely important, because for the majority of players out there, that day is going to come. So you want to talk about that. You want to hear the plan, see what you're capable of doing, how what you can do to change your role to keep progressing up. Or if you're a guy that doesn't want to change your role, well, then you got to change your, maybe change where you want to play, right? Maybe you're not a guy that's going to play at the highest level possible that you can. Maybe you're going to have to, go somewhere lower where you could be the guy that's, putting up a bunch of points even, So to Cam's point, I think that's extremely important to have that conversation with the coach, because, like it or not, want it or not, the day pretty much comes for almost everybody, except for, like I said, 192 players in the world. There's 192 forwards that don't have to change their role and still get to play at the highest level possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, we just finished up our main camp last week, and, we have 30 to 35 guys that will be coming, to training camp, and then we cut down to 25. And during the training camp process, we'll have those conversations. And ultimately, at the end of the day, before posting the final, 25-man roster, I will literally ask them if they're willing to accept the position of whatever it may be: third line, energy, defensive center that, kills penalties. That's where we see you fitting into our team. Is that a role that you want to accept? So I ask them. So it's like very obvious. Okay, this is where we see you. And do you want that? Because as we know, sometimes we hear it all the time, like, oh, I'm a T6, I'm a power play guy, I'm a goal scorer. So if coach comes at you and says, hey, we want you to be a 4th line fighter, do you want that?
Right.
Yeah,
it's important to be honest with yourself about that too.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, your output, your actions, your performance is going to determine what your role is. You just have to be honest with yourself. Like if you're calling yourself a goal scorer, but you had 3 goals in the last 4 years, you're not a goal scorer.
Right.
Like you can think you are, but you're not.
Right.
So, and that's okay. Because as we know, you can't have a team just full of goal scorers. We've all seen teams at different levels, whether it's pro, college, junior, prep, youth, or they have a really talented offensive group, and they typically do well, but they typically don't win at all.
Right.
You know, and when you talk to the coaches, they say, you know, when we played other teams as talented as us, you know, we just couldn't defend them, you know, or we couldn't handle the heaviness or the structure, you know. So you need all pieces, you know. You know, it's all sports, right? Like football, like all the glory goes to the receivers and the QB, right? But everyone talks about how important the line is to give them space to be able to execute those plays, to get touchdowns. Same thing in hockey, right? You need those guys defending, you need those guys fighting and scoring, and people stopping pucks, you know. So, being honest with yourself and really kind of analyzing your game, or having someone help you analyze your game, and you know, then trusting in that process of developing in that role and buy into becoming the best version of that role that you possibly can.
Yeah, for sure. And we got a comment or question from Alan Weeks. It says, why train to be a fourth line guy? Shouldn't you try to train and grow to move up regardless of the level? And I mean, my feeling on that, and then I want to hear, you guys obviously as the, coaches, Alan, it depends on where you're coming from too. Like, your situation, if you're a youth player, if you have a son that's like a peewee player right now, I would say, no, you just keep developing all skills. Like, it's not time to, I don't want to say pigeonhole, but it's, peewees probably isn't the time to change the role. Like, what we're talking about is, the New Hampshire Mountain Kings, they play in the North American Hockey League. It's, one of the best junior leagues in the world for college development and college output. Guys get drafted to the NHL. So we're coming towards the top of the pyramid here, where guys, where there's not many places left to go. We're getting towards the top of the pyramid, and it's kind of time to, for some guys where the only way to keep going, as I said before, the only way to keep going up is to change your role. So if a player is projected that, hey, he's not going to go to the next level as a top six, and again, anything's possible. Like, nobody has a glass ball, but if that's the projection, then yeah, you want to start, you do want to change and maybe, train to be that fourth line guy so you can make it to the top level, because at a certain, again, we're getting towards the end, the top of the pyramid here. And if you're trying to be a top line guy, like let's say you're a guy playing in the NA and, you're trying to go to Division I and you're trying to be that, top line guy in Division I. Well, how are you going to do that if you can't even be a top line guy in the NA? Right. So it almost doesn't even make sense, to some point. Like, so, I mean, that's my feeling on it. I mean, when you guys take it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think the key thing you said there is age. If you're 10 years old, yeah, absolutely not. You want to be training to be, the goal scorer and the fastest skater and the strongest player on the ice. I think we were all kind of talking in regards to earning opportunity at higher levels. And sometimes, you have a vision that you want to be a T6 top two line goal scorer. But the coach says to you, that's not your role here. And so we're talking about adapting to survive at the level, or play a level lower and be, a goal scorer. I think that's kind of what we were, talking about, is more like sticking on teams, and it's all relative to age and as you get older and higher, in levels. So I agree. The age thing is super important.
Yeah. Trevor, any thoughts?
And in addition to that, our players are age 16 to 20. So right, a lot of them they've gone through puberty, they're becoming adults. So a lot of what our league is it's development. It's grabbing players that have had tons of success at the youth level. So a lot of our job is exposure. It's putting the right product out in front of the colleges. So for example, if you have a kid that's a little bit slower but big and strong and he's got a pretty good brain, it's probably not fair to put him on the first or second line or even the third line with all the fastest skaters, because it's not going to be the best way to expose him to college. To put him in a position to succeed would probably put him on a checking role where he can use his size and strength, probably on the penalty kill. So it's the age group that's a massive part of it. But I feel like part of what people don't understand about juniors, especially at this level, is it is about development, but it's also very much about exposure. These players are very well known. They've been around the area. The colleges know about them, but it's a matter of, all right, we've known you a while. We know that you have a lot of skill or a lot of talent, but what are you going to be? What are you going to end up being in this realm? And so, it's a massive part of our jobs, Cam and I, to make sure that we put the players in a position to succeed. So part of that is cutting out, the potential of, well, I could be this and I could be that. And it's a matter of saying, this is going to be the best opportunity in your play style to get a job at the next level. So I think that's a big part of it too. Juniors is about development, but our league especially, and bits and pieces of the USHL, it's a little bit different because they can go younger and all that stuff. But yeah, that would be a big part of that for us.
Yeah. So Alan, hope that answers it. Yeah, and guys, just keep the questions coming. Like, that's what this is, all about and everything. Speaking of development, let's get into the goalie situation, because you guys had a lot of success with goalies last year.
Yeah, we had a lot of goalies because they no, we started the year with a 2005 birth year goaltender, Aiden Wright. And I think a lot of people thought we were crazy for starting an expansion team with a young goaltender.
He was sick.
But he was extremely talented and was a big part of our early success in our first year. And we got to the halfway point of the season, and he was starting to get some USHL interest, people talking for the future for this upcoming 24-25 season. He had a lot of schools that were talking about him. We had a handful of NHL teams at our arena watching him in central scouting, and he had the opportunity to move up to Youngstown. Youngstown had called me, and they were in need of a goaltender, and he was going to go and he was going to play right away. And I had a conversation with him and helped him pack his bags, as they say. We weren't going to keep him to, at our level, just to help our team continue winning. For us, as I said, we're a developmental model. There's some teams that go with a different approach of, a winning model. It's all based on your ownership and your location and, what your beliefs are for that season. And so we moved him on, and he did fantastic. And I think at one point he had the best, save percentage in the whole league. He ended up getting, his scholarship to UVM, and was awesome. Awesome. Actually, Trevor, I didn't even talk to you about this, but I just saw last week, I believe he was traded. Sioux Falls, I believe he's going now. It was a pretty massive trade, what they gave up, to get him. That's how highly they think of him. So he'll be successful there. He's the type of player that, wherever he is, he goes about his business in such a professional manner that he'll be successful. And so then we were in a position where we had to bring in, another goaltender, and we picked up a goaltender that was injured, had some, time in the North American League, and then was coming off of an injury. And he was available, so we brought him in, and he was with us for like a couple weeks, and it was right at the trade deadline at the USHL level, and I got a call, and they needed a goalie. And so he's with us for 2 weeks. He was supposed to be the replacement of Aiden Wright, and we move him right up to the USHL, and then he committed to RPI. And then here we are. We're like, okay, we still need a goalie. And we brought in an even younger goaltender, an 06 from Slovakia, big kid, 6'4", extremely athletic. and he showed up probably the last 15 games in the season. And he was very good for us. A little bit of adjustment, went through some sickness, when he arrived. I mean, it was quite a journey, for him to get here and traveling alone, and first time, playing in the States. And we had 11 NHL teams reach out to us about him.
11 NHL?
Yeah, National Hockey League.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, cut out there for a second,
yeah.
at least on my end.
We thought he may have had good chances to get drafted. A few weeks ago, unfortunately, he missed Worlds in Finland. He was kind of scheduled to be on that team, and then had to have shoulder surgery, and maybe that may have hurt his stock with NHL draft. But he's returning. He's healthy. We're really excited for him to have a full season, with us, and continue to get those looks from not only the NHL, but Division I schools. That's what he wants to do. He wants to go, to school in the States at the Division I level. And he had some interest in his, brief stint with us last year. So it'll be nice to have him, right from the beginning, right from training camp.
Yeah.
So yeah, from all three goalies, we had a couple goalies that came in between while we were waiting for those three to arrive at different points throughout the season. And they did really well for us, when we needed them. And then Stefan Carney came in as well with Bodnar. So we actually finished with two different goalies than we started with, because they moved on, and we helped get them to, the higher levels.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. We have a question here, and this is good because I wanted to get into this anyway. You guys just had your main camp. I want to hear about it. And then Jess wants to know, what advice do you have for all the camps to stand out? So why don't you say to stand out, and then also from just flat out, what can't you stand the most? What's somebody does something that's nope, gone.
Yep. I mean,
Trevor's laughing. I feel like Trevor might have a couple. Trevor's gonna start opening up his list.
Yeah. I mean, it may be a kind of a cliche, some of my answers, but for me, the first thing is skating intensity and compete level. I don't want to see guys giving up on plays or board battles or not, picking up their man or not back checking. Someone that's just solely focused on, executing when it's convenient, is kind of a red flag. Someone that's able to execute in uncomfortable situations, racing for a puck, pokes a puck free, kind of getting a breakaway, but it's getting hooked down, shields off, the player that's hooking him and gets a scoring chance, whether it goes in or not. It shows a little bit of competitiveness and fight, in the dog there, and edge work, to shield and protect the puck, and a desire to get to the net. That wasn't an easy rush for that player. They had to push through, to create that opportunity. That would be a check mark for me next to that player of, a positive thing, that I noticed. To your point, or question of things that are a definite scratch off, body language or whining, when kids are swearing, not at other players, but just fuck, or yelling at the ref, or just it's yeah, you're immature.
The hands in the air when they get the penalty shot at camp is oh, that's the one penalty shot I missed all year. It's yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's you make a mistake. The pros make mistakes every shift. Every shift. You don't have a perfect shift. There's something in every shift that you could have done better. So, you need to learn to be, mentally tough enough to, move on. We have a saying in our locker room, you're only as good as your next shift. So don't live in the past, whether it was positive or negative. You need to recreate success each shift. So that body language, slapping your stick over the boards as you change up, or, bitching with teammates, or, at tryouts, you don't really know your line mates. So if someone's pass me the puck there, or I don't know, something like that, I would kind of be like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't know how good of a teammate he is. It's all about him. Which I get, tryouts are all about you. Like, let's call a spade a spade. You're there to make the team as an individual, but you can make it about you through work, through compete, through performance of producing. Don't make it about you in a selfish or negative way or an immature way.
Yeah, like I always tell, like just play hockey. Like, make the right plays, right? Like, if you make the right play and you dish it off to your teammate at the camp, but like, let's say he's just not good and he messes up, like, nobody's looking at you.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you made the right play. That's on him that he,
Yeah.
that he missed a pass or whatever. Right. Like, where I feel like a lot of guys, they'll look that guy off and they'll try to do everything themselves because they don't have confidence in their teammate.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, well, and then they screw it up because you can't go through 5 people. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, now everybody's looking at you. Right. It's like, you could have made the smart, simple play and everyone would have been, if it got messed up, it wasn't on you, but now it's completely on you because you just did something like.
Yeah.
Like,
I kind of laughed when you said, what are definite things that you scratch guys off? I wasn't going to say it at the junior level because obviously this doesn't happen. But in my head, I was thinking about, like younger players, and there may be some younger players listening, like, I don't know, 11, 12, 13-year-old players, going to tryouts and walking into tryout and your parents are carrying your bag. That would be an automatic scratch for me.
Dude, I think I saw that at an NA camp like 3.
Oh my
years
God.
ago.
And the only thing worse than your parent carrying your bag is your parent wheeling your bag.
Yeah.
Wheelie bags,
Yeah.
So if I was coaching younger level, I would just stand at the door.
Yeah, that's always like I don't know, it's kind of like a tell too. Like, I remember like when I was younger, like you can like go to like clinics and stuff and like you don't know anybody that's showing up, or you only know like 5 out of 30 people showing up, and then it's like you see the kid walk into the locker room with the wheel bag. It's like, oh yeah, he's not good. Like, like it's only
may be judgmental of us, but
or like the kid that shows up and has like green tape on his stick.
Yeah. So thankfully we don't have to deal with that at the junior level. But when you asked, I don't know, that popped in my head for the younger guys. But it's the same thing, honestly. Like, getting back to like a serious note, like the young kids versus the old kids, body language, your compete level, good habits, stopping on pucks, finishing checks, stick on puck, communication. Communication is extremely noticeable when you are standing as a coach up top watching a tryout, and when there is positive chatter by one individual every shift, whether it's calling for pucks, whether it's communication off of a face-off, talking with the goaltender on a puck retrieval of a defender. It's so obvious because most tryouts are quiet.
Yeah,
right?
not a lot of people do it.
Serious and focused, and they may not know everyone, and so they're not, having story time or feel comfortable talking. Yeah. So when one individual does, it shows a few things. One, kind of a leader, like not a follower. Like, okay, everyone else is being quiet, but the right hockey play is to communicate, and you're willing to do that, and no one else is. Show some qualities of maturity and maybe leadership. But it's just so noticeable from up top in this, big building that's quiet, and some kid is sprinting to the cage, calling, for a pass or a shot because he's crashing for the rebound.
Yeah.
And it shows a sense of like engagement in what you're doing for me, and commitment to the play and seriousness and intensity. So that's something I definitely notice in a tryout, as well as that communication and that constant chatter.
Yeah. Trevor, what are yours?
Yeah.
What are the things you like, and what are the things you're just like, nope?
For me, the dislike thing, it's the same stuff as Cam. It's your body language. It's you as a teammate. It's how you interact with each other. Because at the end of the day, it's all a team sport. And the more guys that we can get on the boat that are going to speak positively and spread the right message, those guys have unbelievable value. If you have the ability to impact your teammates with helping get them on the right decision making, and then also make the right decisions on the ice, I mean, you've got a boat headed in the right direction. So that's a big part of it. But there's, we've had 2 camps now. Well, we've had 4 camps between the 2 pre-draft camps and the 2 main camps. And, going to the question from earlier, it's amazing. I call it unapologetic effort. They don't care how they look. They don't care what other people say. They're just a dog on a bone. They shoot the puck rebounds, and it's closest to them. They're not even asking the question. They're going to go get it. They're going to get hit to play the puck. They're going to tap it down to a teammate down low. They're going to take the hit, and they're going to get up high to get to a shot or get to a support spot. But they don't get caught in contact. They play physically, but they don't overhit them, and again, get caught in that contact. And they sprint around the ice. They skate through the right parts of the ice, and they bring an unapologetic effort. I think out of all the camps, there's been at least 2 or 3 kids that we've pulled along, not because they have the most skill or the most talent or they scored the most goals, but they gave everything that they had every time they were on the ice. And by the time you get to the end of the 3 games, you just go, that kid's got to be in the All-Star game because he gave absolutely everything. He didn't score a goal or really do this and that, but he created so much juice in the rink. When it was quiet, that guy was skating. When the team starts to get headed downhill, he's the one crashing the net, stopping in the crease, getting beat up, smacking the puck. Like I think when you go to a tryout and you're just a number and you maybe don't have the goal scoring skill, and we kind of talked about playing roles, there's a value on each and every hockey team to be an unapologetic worker that just, again, doesn't care what it looks like. You could fall all over the place. You could be all over the place. Ugly skating, ugly stick handling, doesn't matter. But an unapologetic effort to work and a willingness to work through contact, that has seemed to be something that I've noticed in the camp, that it may not be in the first game that you notice some, or maybe in the second game, but by the 3rd game, you're sitting in the room and you're looking around and you're going, how are we going to deny this kid an opportunity? He's brought everything to the camp. And whether it works out for them or not, they've been talked about, they've been noticed, and they've gotten on the radar, like that person was asking.
Yeah. And like, I always tell people, like, just be yourself, just be yourself, because, I feel like at a lot of camps, like at the tryout camps and stuff, like, everybody wants to see how you play, right? How you play hockey, right? And as you guys just heard their responses, nobody said, oh, score 1,000 goals.
Yeah.
Right? It was all how you play, right? Like, before the camp even starts, everybody knows who the goal scorers are. We could see how many goals you scored last year, right? If you scored 3 goals last year and you come to camp and you score 15 goals, nobody cares.
Yeah.
You had 3 goals all last year. You obviously had a great weekend. Who cares?
Yeah. Well,
right?
it all goes hand in hand with
like, it's not tricking anybody.
Talking about earlier about your role.
Yeah.
So do what you do well. Like, if you defend well, your defensive D, focus on that. It showcases to the staff like you're someone that can take the role of the defensive defenseman on the team, on the roster.
Right.
So it's all about role identity.
Yeah. And it's the same thing the other way around. Like, if you had a kid that, scored 50 goals last year, and then he comes to camp and doesn't really score, and had a bad weekend, like, that doesn't erase the fact that he scored 50 goals last year. The kid's a goal scorer, right? Everybody knows who the goal scorers are, right? It's about, like, okay, who can play hockey, right? Like, let's see how you play, doing all those little things that you guys are talking about. Like, that's kind of what I always tell people. Like, just be yourself, play the game, have fun, be you.
Yeah.
Like,
and do it unapologetically. Yeah. Just do it, because that's what they're afraid of, right? That's why some of those kids don't just give their all, because they're afraid of, oh, what are they going to say? And is someone going to say that, I skate bad or this and that? And I just, there's a value in just being an unapologetic worker. Doesn't care what it looks like. Just,
why are you going game 7 in a tryout?
Because I want to make the team. That's
I've heard that before. It's crazy to me.
Yeah. Oh, somebody said that at your camp?
Not at our camp. No. Just in the past, the younger ages, actually, I've heard that. Like, look at he's such a game 7 tryhard.
Yeah. Well, it's yeah. I mean, it's nuts. Crazy. And like, it honestly, like, And what I always tell people too, and it's like really important for everyone to understand too, like this starts like well before the tryout. Like, if you're investing the money and the time in one of these opportunities, like you got to be ready for it. I mean, I can't tell you how many guys I've seen, walk into a tryout camp and like just walking in the door. It's like, are you kidding me? Like just fat, out of shape. It's like, why'd you come?
Yeah.
Like you're just kidding yourself. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your money. Like, like, why'd you come?
Yeah. It was actually the conversation I had with each team at our main camp before their first game, kind of echoing what you just said, was make sure you treat this as a tryout. And I continue to say, hockey is so accessible to players, whether it's playing games or summer tournaments or training, and there's ice year round, that sometimes I feel the passion is lost and the appreciation for the ability to play as much as they do. And it's just expected, like, oh, I'm going to play this weekend. I'm going to play this weekend. And, a tryout mentality can be lost when you have, hockey accessible to you every single weekend or day whenever you want it.
Right. There's another tryout, another showcase.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, there's certain moments within your career that, it's a pickup game just for fun with your buddies, or it's a tryout to make the next level. And there needs to be a big difference in your play between the two. And it was something I talked to the teams about, and making sure that they treat it as a tryout, just not another skate that's always accessible to them. And that's what we're looking for, 25 guys that, have the best tryouts and show us all the things that we've been talking about. So I couldn't agree with you more. Like, come in shape, come with a serious mentality, have fun with it, of course, but like, you're there with a purpose. Be there with a purpose.
Right. And like, if this is for you, like if you truly love it, like the work is fun. Like it's not work. Like it is work, but it isn't, and like, I just had this conversation, I think, last week, JT Tarantino was on with me, from the Mercer Chiefs NCDC. And, like we were talking about that, like if you love this, like if this isn't a great time, like if getting your ass kicked with these workouts and everything, like if it's not a great time, like, it might, maybe it's not for you, and that's okay. Like, and this leads me into, because
you have to love it. In the North American League, you have to love it because it's too much travel. It's too many games. It's too demanding that if you don't love it, it does become tedious in a job. Yeah. And so we definitely are looking in year 2 for players that love it and want to be hockey players, and not the idea of playing in the North American League, but actually being part of the North American Hockey League.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I'm about to say, like, everyone needs to understand, like, I've known Cam for a long time, and I don't think I've ever met a player that doesn't like Cam, and Cam treats his players unbelievably.
I'm sure there's some. I said there's got to be some.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, listen, everyone's got those people somewhere, but like, so Cam takes care of his players unbelievably. Now, what you just said in terms of, loving the work and, North American League, you definitely got to love it. I remember last year, I'm not going to say the name, but had somebody call me at a Cam's camp. Like, Cam handed out IV bags. And I remember you called me too.
I did not hand out IV bags. I set up appointments for those individuals that wanted to go get IV bags.
Yeah,
because they were so dehydrated and cramping from the workload. Maybe they didn't come prepared. I don't know. I didn't know where you were going with that, but that is true.
That was them. That was after day 1. He's like, "How is everyone?" And you could just hear the sound of their bones rubbing against each other. And he's like, "Well, if anyone needs some help, I know it's hot out. There's a place down the road." He was trying to save them the work, because they weren't going to work hard enough to Google it. So he went out of his way to Google it for them and tell them where to go.
We had a pretty intense training camp last year. We had to, right? Because we didn't have any of those veteran guys that were returners that people could lean on or show them how it is. We had to find the ones that could handle adversity, handle tough workouts, handle a grind that we knew we could have on our roster for the season. And so it's almost like boot camp, right? Like, make it so challenging who can get through it to, continue on. So I'm not going to say that it will be that hard or it won't be that hard this training camp, just in case any of our players that will be attending
need
I don't
IV
want them
bags
to hear me say it's going to be easier, so.
Yeah.
Funny enough though. So, at our training camp last year, we got through the first on ice session. And after the first on ice session, I think it was 2 45-minute halves. We had a player come up into the office before we got our skates off, and he opened the door and he goes, "You know what, coach?" He goes, "Nothing against you guys. I can't help this team. This is just not for me. I don't think I'm going to be able to help the group, so I'm going to hand over my jersey right now." And that was the first skate. He didn't even make it to off ice. And the first skate was an introductory skate. It was more than anything like, here's some of the drills that we do, and then we injected some pace, and then we injected some compete, and got an ice cut, and then turned around and injected some compete, maybe some small games, and got off. And a player that we drafted and everything was like, played at a very high level. This was a player that should be relatable to our level, should be able to walk right in, and just came upstairs and went, I did some soul searching while we were on the ice, and I've come to the conclusion that I'm not going to be able to do any of this stuff, and I think this is where I tap out. And he rang the bell and he was out of there, and we just went, holy moly. So I commend the rest of the guys that did stick around, because it got way harder than that.
Yeah, at least he had the self-awareness to, was honest with himself.
Yeah.
And Cam, so I got the comment on Facebook earlier this week was,
you mentioned it.
Yeah, was ask Cam, and I know you've told me this story before. Ask Cam about the time he slept in a tent trying out in the CCHL.
Yeah. I was 17 or 18.
Because it goes hand in hand what we're saying about, do anything you have to make the team.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I was getting done with high school, and I wanted to play junior at the time. Like a lot of Americans were going to play in the CC. It was a really good league. And I was trying out for a team, Nepean Raiders, and I hadn't been contacted by their staff. I just wanted to play there. And so they had a conditioning camp, which anyone could sign up and pay and go to. And it was for locals, obviously. And here I am, driving, 10 hours to get there. And in my head, I'm like, I'm going to catch the eye. I'm going to catch the eye of the staff. They're going to invite me to training camp. And it was a week-long camp. And then the training camp started the next week. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm going there for 2 weeks. And I'm like, I can't afford a hotel for 2 weeks. And so I Googled camping grounds, and there was one like 1 mile from the rink. So I packed a tent and a cooler with all this food, and I literally camped out. It was like right behind the rink. I was at a campground.
That's awesome.
Living in a tent, and went through the conditioning camp, and I actually got invited to the training camp with Nepean, and earned a spot on the team. I was a leading scorer in preseason. Their roster was kind of full, and a couple guys were hurt, and they told me, like, we'll bring you in and you can play until these guys are back, and then we'll trade you in the league. And I was like, perfect. That's all I want. I just want to play in the league. But specifically to the tent situation, no one knew that I was staying in a tent. They're just like, oh, who's this American, from Maine? Like, no one knew who I was. I wasn't, someone that had been recruited by their staff or been to practices, the previous season. And it was probably like the third day of the second week. And the coach came up to me, and I was one of the few guys in the locker room. And as I was walking out, he called me over, and he was like, I got to ask you something. And I'm like, sure, what's up? And he's like, rumor has it that you're sleeping in a tent behind the arena. Yeah, called me right out. And, was kind of keeping it hush-hush between him and I. And I said, yeah, I am. Like, I couldn't afford, to stay in a hotel for 2 weeks straight. And he was like, well, why didn't you ask for, like, a billet? And I said, well, to be fair, I said, you didn't even know who I was as a player last week. I'm from the States, and I kind of just came up here on my own to catch your eye. And I paused for a second. I looked at him and I said, I didn't come here to stay in a hotel on vacation. I came here to make your team. And I honestly think I made the team in that moment. He was like, this kid is crazy. And, so the assistant coach ended up taking me in, who had a son that also played in the league. So he showed me around town and introduced me to a lot of people. And I think they owned a few Wendy's, like fast food joints. Okay. And so I went from a tent to a very nice home with nice people, and had an actual billet.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I was to our point earlier, it was a trial for me. Like, I was all business. I was going there with a purpose, and I was willing to do whatever it took. I think my mom was freaking out because here I am driving, 10 hours away from home and living in a tent. Yeah. My dad's like, you'll be fine. Driving to Ottawa, using printouts of, like, Google, what was it back then? Like
MapQuest. Yeah, MapQuest.
Yes, MapQuest, like going through all these farm fields in my purple little Saturn. Tent
Which
in the
was
back.
interesting because you were allowed to, like, go through all that stuff, like, while driving, but, like, now, like, you can't look at your phone.
Yeah.
Like, you can't look at your phone, the GPS on your phone, but, like, people are sitting there, like, with maps.
Yeah,
exactly. Taking over the whole windshield.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was a different time for sure. Sure.
Did you hear about, there was a kid in the North American League, I don't know, maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. I think he showed up to main camp in a U-Haul. Oh. And, like, the staff asked him, they're like, he shows up in this U-Haul. And they're like, they're like, what are you doing? And he's like, hey, rental car's $100 a day. This was on special for $9. He's like $9 a day or something. So he rented the
maybe
U-Haul.
He had it full. He was sending them a message. I'm here to stay. I brought all my stuff.
Yeah. Well, that used to be the joke. Like, back when we played, it was like, what size bag did you bring to training camp? Like a big bag or a little bag? Like, did you pack to stay or pack to, but yeah.
The good old 10 story. Who told you to ask that?
I don't. It was in one of the I posted the video to one of the Facebook groups, and somebody commented, said, "Ask Cam to tell you the story."
Someone that must have been around that time. It was a good team. We had like 3 kids drafted in the NHL off that team. Gary Galley was our head coach. All-star NHL, Stanley Cup champion. I mean, it was a good, really good team.
Yeah. That. I don't think that league's as strong as it used to be.
It's younger now.
Well, and it's pay to play.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you can't take the best kids anymore. You got to take the best kids that could pay.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know, one of the changes and everything with junior hockey, and it'll be interesting. I mean, we're a little over an hour now. So, anybody that has any last minute questions, comments, concerns, ask them, because we're gonna call it here. We'll be right back next Thursday, 9 p.m. every Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll have a new episode of Swan Hockey Live. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe on YouTube. Just check out everything. We should be days away from the Swan Hockey Digital Web3 coming out. I'm really excited about that. I know we started talking about that at pre-draft a little bit. Cam and Trevor. Yeah. So we should be days away from that, guys. So just, keep connected on social media. If you haven't joined the Discord, join the Discord. It's going to be extremely important going forward here with the Web3. And, I know it might be a lot for some people, throwing a lot at you, but like I said, just join now, take it step by step. There's going to be a lot of things coming out to walk everybody through this. Once you understand it, it's very, very simple. And, so if you're coming along for the ride, there's going to be a lot of really, really cool things coming. And, should be days away now. So I'm really excited for that. And, just, swanhockey.com, join the Discord. We also got the Scout Central there. Anything you guys want to say leading into this in terms of, players connecting with you guys and, I don't know, just, maybe the most important thing that you guys are looking for in a player or just anything like that.
First, just want to say thanks for having us on this.
Thanks for coming on.
Just talk hockey. And, we didn't really have a script. We were talking about it earlier. Said, we talk all the time. We can just run with it.
Yeah, this was one of the first episodes. I literally, I didn't really write anything down. I wrote a couple things down, literally as I had that intro up there, but
No, so it was fun just to, talk hockey. And so I appreciate it. And thanks, Trev, for jumping on. And to your point, kind of final statements of, something that we look for. I guess the biggest bulletin point is, compete and character, and unapologetic effort as coach, titles it. That's what we're looking for, because as we get to the higher levels, everyone can, skate and everyone can shoot and has good hands. So we're just looking for that compete and good people and people that want to, create a positive environment, for our organization for the year. And as far as connecting with us, I'm not a big social media guy, but my email and phone number are everywhere on New Hampshire Mountain Kings website. So if you listen to this and had questions or want to connect, a simple text works. But I appreciate it. It was fun.
And I appreciate you guys coming on, and Trevor, appreciate you coming on. I asked Cam, what was it? Probably, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago. I'm like, hey, you think Trevor would want to come on? And Cam's just like, yeah, he's coming on. He'll come on.
Yeah. He's on the road. He's in the hotel room. He's at the Chowder Cup right now. So he's working double time.
Yeah, so that was the ongoing joke for the last couple of weeks. Is just Trevor's coming on. Nobody told Trevor. Trevor will be here. And sure enough, there he was. Cam's like, hey, did you talk to Trevor? It was like probably about I don't know, maybe about an hour ago. I'm like, oh no, I haven't. He's like, oh, all right. He's like, he just texted me. He's coming on. I'm like, all right, sweet.
All good.
I kind of wanted it to be a surprise, so he didn't have time to prepare. We get the true Trevor.
What is that? Oh, true
way to do it.
True Trevor. Yeah. So Trevor's at Chowder Cup. So anyone there, go say hi to Trevor.
Yep.
I will be at Junior Chowder Cup next weekend. So
don't lie. Be there with North Star.
What did you say? I'm sorry.
That's why I'll be there with North Star, running around 08s and 09. Sure, I'll see you there.
Yep. Yeah, I'll have an 09 team there. So anybody that'll be there, come say hi. Cam, will you be there?
I'll be in and out.
In and out.
So not the entirety of the weekend, but probably the beginning and end, not the middle frame.
All right, sweet. Well, yeah, I'll probably see you guys up there, and then I think Titans camp should be next week. I'll probably be there at some point. So anyone that'll be at Titans camp, let me know. Sounds great. Thanks for doing this, guys.
Absolutely.
Awesome. We'll talk soon.
Yeah. Yep. Sounds good. Everybody have a great night, and I will see you next week.